her companion Mr. Long, once again with Ambien, left his home, returned to the Hotel Bel Air, and sought out the suite of Mr. Eagle. You have heard how she entered the suite next door in error and shot Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Dattila of New York, believing that they were Mr. Eagle and his friend. All of this is in evidence, and the weight of it is enough for you to send Ms. Eagle to prison for the rest of her life. I ask you to do just that. Thank you. Valerie Simmons sat down. The judge turned to the defense table. "Mr. Karp," he said. Richard Karp rose and faced the jury. "Good morning," he said. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about reasonable doubt. If you believe that there is a reasonable doubt that Barbara Eagle killed Mr. and Mrs. Dattila, and that is all that she is charged with, then you are legally and morally bound to acquit her. Everything you have heard from the prosecution about Ms. Eagle's past and what she may or may not have done in Mexico is window dressing, nothing more. And none of what you have heard is supported by any material evidence, just the testimony of questionable witnesses. While you heard Mr. Eagle testify that he was drugged with Ambien, there is no scientific evidence to support that contention. What happened was that Mr. Eagle had too much to drink the evening before and overslept. The funds that Ms. Eagle took with her to Mexico, in a desperate attempt to remove herself from an abusive marriage, were marital funds, and she was legally entitled to take them. I would remind you that one of the two men allegedly hired to kill Mr. Eagle is dead, and the other could not pick Ms. Eagle out of a lineup. I would remind you that it is not a crime in the United States to shoot someone in Mexico in self-defense or to push someone off a boat in an attempt to defend herself from a rape, and you have heard that both of her attackers survived. I would remind you that, although Ms. Eagle and Mr. Long dined at the Bel Air the evening before the murder, you have also heard from Mr. Long that she spent the entire night in his bed in his home and did not return to the Bel Air to shoot Mr. Dattila, who, you have heard, was the son of the mafia kingpin Carmine Dattila, who also met a violent death. It is far more likely that Thomas Dattila was killed by his own associates or competitors than by Ms. Eagle. I would remind you that Mr. James Long underwent no testing for the drug Ambien, and he has testified that Ms. Eagle spent the night with him, indeed that they made love in the middle of the night. I would remind you that it is not a crime for a woman to have her appearance enhanced by her hairstylist and her cosmetic surgeon. He smiled knowingly. In fact, stripped to its relevant essentials, the prosecution's case is nothing more than a lot of hot air, backed only by the testimony of an angry ex-husband and the two private detectives he hired to bully and harass her, and to come into this court and lie about her. There is no physical evidence, no murder weapon, and no motive for the murders of two people Ms. Eagle had never even met. I put it to you that the doubt of guilt in this case is not only reasonable, but overwhelming. And I ask you, after a careful examination of the evidence, or rather non-evidence, to acquit Barbara Eagle and set her free, so that she may still have a chance to find some happiness in what has so far been a life full of abuse and harassment by her ex-husband and others. Find her not guilty." Karp sat down. "What do you think?" Susanna asked. "Well, they both said pretty much what I would have said if I had been prosecuting or defending," Eagle said. "I think the jury will convict her." "Well, then," Susanna said, "while the jury is deliberating, may I distract you?" "You may," Eagle said, rolling over and taking her in his arms. She had been distracting him for 10 minutes or so when Eagle was redistracted by a sudden intensity in the voice of the court judge.